When we hear about a synagogue being attacked, please let us never just think it's one synagogue, it's one incident. That's the warning from history that's coming to us. It is normalizing. It is telling us to look the other way. It is telling allies or other people to look the other way, and we don't want to live in a world where you look the other way. The Holocaust is the most documented event in history, yet we ask the question all the time, what did we learn from it, and why are we repeating some of those same old lies and mistakes and discrimination and hatred when we know where it can lead to?
Hi everyone, welcome to Proudly Jewish, Conversations on Israel and Jewish Identity. I'm your host, Rabbi Eyal Bitton. Now, when people today try to understand what's going on, what they're seeing around them, I hear a lot of people talking about, and I've done this too, talking about pre-World War II Germany, so 1930s Germany. And yes, there's a warning worth remembering, and there's a valid case to be made about that. But I find that the atmosphere we're seeing right now on the streets of Western countries is actually a little bit more like the Arab world in the 40s and 50s. During that period, ancient Jewish communities across the Middle East and North Africa began to realize something. Their future in those countries was coming to an end. So let's start with what's happening today, and I'll get back to the comparison. Because in just the past few weeks, we've seen some deeply disturbing incidents in Western countries. So let's look over a few of them. And this is only just a few. There's been more than this. In San Jose, a Jewish man sitting at a restaurant patio was violently attacked by 3 thugs. They heard him speaking Hebrew, and they went nuts. They got violent. They assaulted him. It's incredibly disturbing. Watch.
I got you, bitch. I got you.
In Toronto, several synagogues were shot at.
Here at home, police continue to investigate shootings at 2 Toronto area synagogues. Bullet holes were discovered in the front door of a synagogue in the northern part of the city. Officers also responded to another shooting incident in Vaughan, Ontario. That's just north of Toronto, shortly before midnight on Friday.
In Montreal, my hometown, a kosher restaurant was vandalized with swastikas.
And several businesses in Montreal were the target of anti-Semitic attack on Wednesday. Swastikas were painted on a pharmacy, a butcher, and a restaurant in what's known to be a Jewish area. The police hate crimes unit is investigating. B'nai B'rith says anti-Semitic incidents have skyrocketed since October 7th's Hamas attack in 2023.
Now, there's been plenty more over the years, and certainly even in the past week around the world.
Nothing like this has ever happened over here, and I'm still just in shock.
Tonight, terror in West Bloomfield.
We want people to take a breath. No one was hurt. We're on top of it. The chief and his team got here fast. Everything that was supposed to happen, happened.
A man armed with a rifle rams his car through Temple, Israel in West Bloomfield. That driver dead. A security guard hit and hospitalized. Incredibly, nobody else was hurt.
In Australia in December, of course, there was that horrific attack at Bondi Beach. Jews celebrating Hanukkah, families at the beach having a really nice celebration, were attacked by Islamic terrorists, shooting at them randomly.
Gunmen targeting innocent people enjoying the sun and the holidays on Campbell Parade and around Bondi Pavilion. Mass panic on the sand. Some run, some hide. Hundreds of people were attending the Hanukkah by the Sea event when shots rang out.
This is the Jewish community at its best, coming together to mark a happy occasion. And if we were targeted deliberately in this way, it's something of a scale that none of us could have ever fathomed.
I saw blood gushing in front of me. I saw people hit, saw people fall to the ground. My only concern was, where are my kids? Where are my kids? Where's my wife? Where's my family?
These events are not identical. They're different places, they're different perpetrators, different circumstances, but they all produce the same effect. They create an atmosphere, a climate hostile to us Jews. It sends a message to us. Be careful. Hide your identity. Keep your head down, because expressing who you are might put you in danger. And if you know Jewish history, something about this pattern should feel very familiar, because Jewish communities rarely disappear overnight. There are warning signs. And that first thing is the climate changes, the atmosphere changes, and that hostility becomes normalized, justified and normalized. And eventually, people realize that the ground beneath them has shifted. Now, here's a piece of history that most people simply never hear about. Before 1948, there were almost 1 million Jews in the Middle East and North Africa. Right? That's my ancestry. So I'm not talking about a small community, I'm talking about almost 1 million Jews in Iraq, in Egypt, in Yemen, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Libya, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. These weren't immigrant communities. They were ancient communities. The Jewish community of Iraq traced its roots back 2,600 years, back to the Babylonian exile. The Jews of Yemen believed their community dated back to the period of King Solomon. In Morocco, Jews had lived there since Roman times, since before the Arab conquest. These were communities with deep roots in the region. But within a single generation, roughly between 1948 and the 70s, almost all of them disappeared. Today, in most of these countries, there are virtually no Jews left, zero. An entire civilization vanished. So the obvious question is, what happened? Well, the Arab world turned on its Jews. And the warning signs were visible even before the state of Israel was created in 48. In 1947, during the UN debate over the future of Palestine, something remarkable happened. The Syrian delegate, Faris El-Khoury, issued a warning. He said, unless the Palestine problem is settled, we shall have difficulty in protecting and safeguarding the Jews in the Arab world. So stop and think about what that means. It means they're not going to protect Jews. It means that Jews living in Arab countries, Jews who had lived there for centuries, might become targets because of the conflict with Israel. There's a conflict with Israel. The target is Jews, local Jews. And that's exactly what happened. Hostility toward Israel quickly spilled over into the local Jewish communities living in those societies. But there's something else that matters here. Persecution of Jews in these regions did not begin in 1948. Jewish communities often lived under what was called dhimmi status. Dhimmi, D-H-I-M-M-I, dhimmi status. That means that they were tolerated, but they were subordinate. They were second-class citizens. Sometimes Jews prospered. Sometimes they flourished culturally and economically, but they were second-class citizens. And their security, safety, their well-being always depended on the political climate, protection of the authorities. And when that climate shifted, violence could erupt very quickly. In 1066, thousands of Jews were massacred in Granada. In 1465, thousands more were killed in a pogrom in Fez. So while there were periods of coexistence, Jewish security in these societies were never fully guaranteed. And by the way, there's plenty more of the examples beyond the examples I just gave. So when anger over Zionism in the modern era spread across the Arab world, it didn't remain directed at Israel. It generally turned against the Jews living next door. Now, here's something that Jewish communities learned very quickly in the mid-20th century. When people said they were only against Zionism, it was them. It was often the Jews themselves next door who paid the price. So I'll give you two examples. In 1945, demonstrations erupted in Egypt protesting Zionism and the Balfour Declaration. The protests quickly turned violent. Jewish neighborhoods in Cairo and Alexandria were attacked. Synagogues were burned. Homes were looted. Jews were killed, and many more were injured. And remember something important. Israel didn't yet exist. These attacks were directed at local Jews. Local Jews. Now, let's look at Iraq. A man named Shafiq Ades was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. He was deeply integrated into Iraqi society. In 1948, he was accused of helping Israel. The charges were almost certainly fabricated. And after a show trial, he was publicly hanged in Basra before thousands of spectators. The message was unmistakable. If someone as wealthy and connected as Shafiq Ades could be executed, then no Jew in Iraq could feel safe. Within a few years, nearly the entire Jewish community of Iraq left the country. Mass exodus. Between 1948 and the 1960s, nearly 850,000 Jews fled the Arab world. Most lost their homes. Most lost their businesses. I know this is the case with my family. Lost their home, lost their business. But almost all of them left behind communities that had existed for centuries. Now think about what that means. Cities like Baghdad, Cairo, Aleppo, Tripoli had Jewish communities that were older than many modern nations. And yet within one generation, those communities were gone. One generation, gone after centuries and centuries. Today, in many of those countries, like I said, the Jewish population is zero. An entire civilization gone, disappeared. Several years ago, Hillel Neuer, the executive director of UN Watch, took the floor at the United Nations, and he asked a very simple question. Before 1948, again, nearly 1 million Jews lived across the Arab world. And today, in most countries, there are none. So he asked the representatives of those countries something very direct. Watch.
Israel's 1.5 million Arabs, whatever challenges they face, enjoy full rights to vote and to be elected in the Knesset. They work as doctors and lawyers. They serve on the Supreme Court. Now, I'd like to ask the members of that commissioned that report, the Arab states from which we just heard, Egypt, Iraq, and the others, how many Jews live in your countries? How many Jews lived in Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Morocco? Once upon a time, the Middle East was full of Jews. Algeria had 140,000 Jews. Algeria, where are your Jews? Egypt used to have 75,000 Jews. Where are your Jews? Syria, you had tens of thousands of Jews. Where are your Jews? Iraq, you had over 135,000 Jews. Where are your Jews? Mr. President, where is the real apartheid?
The Jews of Baghdad did not believe they were living in the final chapter of their history. The Jews of Cairo didn't believe it either. Neither did the Jews of Aleppo or Tripoli, but they were. After centuries of life in those regions, their communities vanished almost overnight. And it didn't start with mass expulsions. It started with something quieter, a shift in the climate, a shift in the attitude, and the shift in the treatment of Jews. Hostility became normalized. Jews began to feel unsafe expressing their identity. And once that atmosphere took hold, the rest followed. So when we see events today, like a Jewish man being beaten for speaking Hebrew, synagogues shot at, Jewish businesses vandalized, these incidents are not identical to what happened in the Middle East in the 20th century, but that energy is the same. We're channeling the same energy. It's the same energy that once led to the disappearance of Jews in the Arab world. Today, many people insist that they're only against Israel. They're only criticizing Israel. But Jews everywhere are feeling the consequences. So it's not true. Jews are being targeted. And that's exactly how Jewish life in the Arab world began to unravel. Within a single generation, after centuries and centuries of life in the Middle East and North Africa, within a single generation, the Jews of that part of the world were gone. So history leaves us with a warning. The question can be, does history repeat itself? But it's not really, does history repeat itself? The question really is whether we can recognize the warning signs before history repeats itself.